What if a single dam could change the fate of an entire country? Picture a river that for thousands of years fed civilizations, yet at any moment could destroy them too. The Nile, mighty and unforgiving, flooded Egypt's fields every year. And then, in the 20th century, people decided to tame it. Today, we are telling the story of the Aswan Dam. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the most interesting part. The Nile, the longest river in the world, flows through 11 countries and carries water from Africa's mountain peaks into the Mediterranean Sea. For thousands of years, its floods were, for Egyptians, quite literally a gift from the heavens. Every summer, the water rose, spilled over the banks, and left behind a layer of fertile black silt that Egyptians called a word that meant life. But nature is rarely predictable. A flood that was too strong wiped out crops, swept away villages, and killed livestock. A flood that was too weak left fields dry and people without food. For centuries, Egypt lived in this constant balance between abundance and hunger, unable to control its own destiny. By the end of the 19th century, Egypt's population had surged. The country needed more food, more water, more land. British colonisers who were running Egypt at the time began seriously discussing the idea of building a dam on the Nile to tame the river and send its waters where people needed them, not where nature decided. The first Aswan Dam was built between 1898 and 1902. It was designed by the British engineer William Wilcox, with the participation of Benjamin Baker and John Aird. The dam was 2 kilometres long, and at the time it was built, it was considered the largest masonry dam in the world. The grand opening took place on the 10th of December 1902, under the leadership of the Duke of Connaught. Thousands of Egyptians celebrated, believing their lives would change forever. And they did change, but not for long. The river proved stronger, and within a few years it became clear that one dam was not enough. The dam was raised twice, first between 1907 and 1912, then between 1929 and 1933. But even after all the improvements, it could only partially restrain the powerful flow. A complete solution required an entirely new design. Meanwhile, enormous political changes were unfolding in Egypt. In 1952, the revolutionary Gamal Abdel Nasser came to power. He dreamed of turning Egypt into a modern, powerful state, and from the very beginning, he put the construction of a new high dam at the centre of his policy. Nasser turned to the United States and the United Kingdom for financing. In December 1955, they even agreed to support the project. But soon, the situation changed sharply. Egypt purchased Soviet weapons through Czechoslovakia, and the West, irritated by Nasser's growing closeness with the USSR, withdrew financing in 1956. Nasser's response shocked the world. He nationalised the Suez Canal, one of the most important trade arteries on the planet. This triggered a real international crisis. The United Kingdom, France, and Israel joined forces and attacked Egypt. However, under pressure from the United States, they had to withdraw after just 10 days. Nasser emerged from this crisis as a national hero. The Soviet Union stepped in to help. Moscow agreed to finance the construction of the new Aswan High Dam. On the 27th of December 1958, an agreement on Soviet technical assistance was signed in Cairo. So the Cold War directly led to one of the greatest engineering projects of the 20th century. On the 9th of January 1960, Nasser personally pressed the detonator button, and 10 tons of explosives tore apart the rocks near Aswan. construction began. More than 30,000 Egyptians worked around the clock in the desert heat of 40 degrees, rotating shifts for an entire decade. Soviet engineers played a key role in the project. Several thousand of them arrived. Together with Egyptian workers, they quite literally bit into the earth, laying the foundation for what was meant to become one of the largest hydraulic engineering structures on Earth. The friendship of the two countries was reinforced with concrete and steel. There is a little-known fact. The dam's technical design was originally developed not by the Soviets at all, but by West German engineers. They were the ones who drew up the detailed technical plan, and when the West refused financing, Soviet specialists brought the German design to life. The story of this construction is woven from unexpected turns. In 1964, a landmark event took place. Nasser and Nikita Khrushchev together opened the diversion canal for the river. The leaders of the two countries stood side by side, looking at the tamed Nile. Nasser called the dam a symbol of eternal friendship with the Soviet people. By some accounts, Khrushchev did not hide his emotion that day. On the 15th of January 1971, the Aswan High Dam was officially opened. By that time, Nasser was no longer alive. He died in 1970. The opening ceremony was conducted by the President of Egypt, Anwar Sadat, and the Soviet leader, Nikolai Podgorny. The era of the unrestrained Nile had ended. So what is this engineering marvel? The Aswan High Dam is 3,600 metres long and 111 metres high. Its base is almost a kilometre wide. It is a real mountain of concrete and rock, a man-made ridge that blocked the great river. 17 million cubic metres of rock were excavated for construction. Another 42 million cubic metres came from other building materials. If all that material were assembled into a single cube, its side would be more than 500 metres. The scale is truly imagination-grabbing. 12 turbines are installed at the dam, each with a capacity of 120,000 horsepower. Together, they generate up to 10 billion kilowatt-hours of energy per year. When the dam first began operating, it provided half of all of Egypt's electricity. Entire villages and towns, for the first time in their history, received electric light. Behind the dam, Lake Nasser formed, one of the largest artificial reservoirs in the world. Its length is about 500 kilometres. Roughly 360 of them are in Egypt, and another 140 stretch into Sudan. The volume of water in it is roughly 157 cubic kilometres. Here is a striking fact that few people know. The volume of water in Lake Nasser is about 4 times greater than the combined volume of giants like the Hoover Dam in America and the Three Gorges Dam in China, taken together. One dam in the Egyptian desert holds what the 2 greatest dams in the world cannot contain combined. The annual floods in Egypt stopped completely. At first, it seemed like a true miracle. Fields no longer drowned in torrents. Villages were not swept away by floodwaters. People did not lose their harvest. Egyptians who had lived for millennia by the rhythm of the floods suddenly found themselves in a completely new reality. The Nile stopped setting the terms. The area of irrigated land in Egypt after the dam's construction increased by about 1/3. Many fields that previously received water only during flood season were now irrigated year-round. This made it possible to move from 1 harvest a year to 2 and even 3. Egyptians began growing sugarcane, cotton and rice where scorched desert had been before. In dry years, when the water level in the Nile falls, the Lake Nasser reservoir provides the country with strategic reserves for several years ahead. In 1984, during a brutal African drought, These reserves protected Egypt from catastrophe. According to expert estimates, without the dam, several million people would have been on the edge of hunger. It would seem like a complete and unconditional victory. But nature does not tolerate being rewritten. Along with the floods, the Nile carried tons of fertile silt into the valley. For millennia, it fertilized Egyptian fields. Now, all that silt settles on the bottom of Lake Nasser, and the Nile Delta gradually loses nutrients. Soils grow poorer. Before the dam was built, the Nile carried about 130 million tons of fertile sediment each year. Now, practically all of that volume remains in the reservoir. Egyptian farmers are forced to buy artificial fertilizers where nature used to renew the land on its own. That means additional costs and additional pressure on the environment. The Nile Delta began to melt away, almost literally. Without new river deposits, the coastline is being destroyed under the udars of the Mediterranean Sea. Scientists calculated that up to 50% of the delta's area risks being swallowed by the sea over the coming decades. The world's oldest agricultural region found itself under serious threat. An equally serious problem was soil salinity. When fields are irrigated constantly, without the natural flushing of a flood, salt accumulates in the upper layers of the ground. Yields decline. Some farmland drops out of use entirely. It is a bitter irony. The dam, meant to water the land, in some places dries it out from the inside. The environmental consequences also affected fishing. In the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Egypt, fish stocks dropped sharply. Nutrients that the Nile once carried out supported a rich marine ecosystem. After the dam was built, fishermen who worked the coast began going farther and farther offshore. There is one more consequence of the dam that almost no one talks about. It is the spread of schistosomiasis, a parasitic disease transmitted through freshwater snails. After the creation of a year-round irrigation network, the area of water bodies grew sharply, and infection rates in a number of regions of Egypt noticeably increased. The dam changed not only the landscape, but also the country's epidemiological map. There was another dramatic price Egypt paid. Building the reservoir meant flooding of vast territory where an ancient people lived, the Nubians. They are one of the oldest peoples of Africa, guardians of a unique culture, with roots reaching deep into the age of the pharaohs. About 50,000 Egyptian Nubians were forced to leave their ancestral lands. Their villages, fields, and cemeteries went underwater. The Sudanese side also suffered. Roughly 40,000 Nubians from Sudan were resettled into specially built areas. The price of progress was measured in thousands of human lives. Nubians still remember their lost homeland. Their culture, language, songs and legends keep the memory of the flooded shores. The second and third generations of resettled Nubians still call themselves people of the Nile, even though they have never seen the places where their grandfathers and grandmothers were born. It is a wound in history that does not heal. But there was another threat hanging over the world's cultural heritage in those years. The rising waters of Lake Nasser threatened to swallow forever the temples built by the great pharaoh Ramesses II, around 1264 BCE. We are talking about the famous temples of Abu Simbel, one of the symbols of ancient Egypt. In 1959, the Egyptian government appealed to UNESCO for help. The organisation announced an international campaign to save Nubian monuments. More than 50 countries responded and collected a total of $80 million. Half of the funds came from foreign governments, half from international organisations. The Abu Simbel temples were saved in a radical way. They were cut apart. literally sawn into massive stone blocks weighing up to 30 tons each. Over 4 years, from 1964 to 1968, thousands of workers and engineers from different countries dismantled, moved, and reassembled the colossal statues and temple halls. The temples were moved 200 metres inland and raised 65 metres above the former level. At the same time, they tried to preserve the original orientation to the cardinal directions. Twice a year, on the 22nd of February and the 22nd of October, the first rays of the rising sun still reach the very heart of the temple and light up the figures of the gods. This detail still amazes people to this day. In total, during the campaign, more than 22 temples and historical sites were relocated. Some of them were gifted to the countries that provided the greatest help. That was when the idea of World Cultural Heritage was born, which later formed the basis of the UNESCO Convention. The Aswan story gave the world a new view of preserving civilization. The construction of the dam took human lives, and that too is part of the story. Several hundred workers died in accidents, heat, blasting work, and collapses in excavation pits took their toll. Their names did not make it into history textbooks, but it was they who built this colossal structure with their own hands. The silent builders of a great construction. The dam gave Egypt not only water and electricity, it gave it independence. The country that until 1956 depended on British control over the Suez Canal now had its own energy and water sovereignty. Nasser called the dam the heart of the nation, and that was not an exaggeration. In the first years after launch, the dam provided about half of all of Egypt's electricity. This made it possible to build new factories, aluminium plants, and processing combines. The country made a powerful leap into the industrial age. Rural areas that had never had electricity received light in their homes. Lake Nasser itself became a source of life. Fishing on the reservoir provides work for thousands of people, and the annual fish catch is measured in tens of thousands of tons. The desert space that before the dam's construction was a scorched plain is now teeming with life. An important detail: Lake Nasser is home to the Nile perch, one of the largest freshwater predators on the planet. This giant grows up to 200 kilograms. The lake has turned into a real paradise for fishing enthusiasts from all over the world. Catching a giant fish in the middle of the Egyptian desert, what could be more unexpected? Today, the Aswan High Dam produces about 15% of Egypt's total electricity consumption. That is less than in the 70s, because the country grew and its needs multiplied many times over. Even so, the dam continues to operate as an important element of the country's energy system. Can the Aswan Dam be judged in a single, clear way? No. This structure is woven from contradictions, like history itself. It saved millions of people from hunger and floods, brought light to cities and villages, and opened a path to modernity for Egypt. And at the same time, it flooded a millennia-old culture, stripped the river of its ancient power, and set off a long chain of ecological change. The Aswan High Dam. It is not just concrete and steel. It is a story about how people challenged nature and at the same time paid for their arrogance. A story about how big politics, Soviet engineers, and Egyptian dreams fused into one great project. Each of us lives in a world where decisions like this were made and will be made. Subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, do you think this dam was worth its price?